Hello you, it's me. Today we're going to talk about Notes from the Burning Age by Claire North, which just came out, I think, in paperback. This is sort of a borderline eco-punk dystopian sci-fi with more than a few sniffs of fantasy in it. It's hard to know where to shelf this, so if you've read it, let me know what genre you think it kind of sits in. I'm going to be doing plot, reviews, stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like. It'll all be marked on the time bar, so feel free to click around as usual. This is set generations after the downfall of human society brought about by disrespect for the environment, pollution, greed, hubris. Stories are told about the Kukui, nature spirits who woke from the earth to save it from people. Now, years later, there are people that believe they have to appease nature and the Kukui or they'll come back. And some believe it's kind of more a metaphor for destruction caused by humans. And there are some who believe it's their responsibility to build back bigger and better and stronger to be ready for the Kukui to kill them if they ever rise again. Ven was once a monk, a keeper of archives that worked to translate repositories of knowledge that are dug up from ruins, sort of like hard drives, books, scrolls, blueprints, protecting them from humans who might use them and cause humanity to repeat its horrible past mistakes. But when he's approached by a revolutionary group asking him to translate stolen documents that could put the entire world in danger, he's really forced to choose where his loyalties lie, figure out his priorities, who he is as a person, under the watchful eyes of both a borderline criminal organization and the monk order to which he belonged. While I normally am somebody that reads primarily for the plot and the ideas in a book, I think it was the character writing that kept me rooted in throughout this one. There were passages describing when somebody has given up, were just heartbreaking to read. Really convincing passages, probably some of the most convincing I've read, where people are weighing up their dual loyalties. Ven is a character who's really easy to sympathize with, even despite there being hardly any monologue at all on their part, presumably because through that it might be easy to spoil stuff that occurs later down the line. One thing I did love though is that because these doors on all the characters are closed and you don't have that internal monologue, you as a reader are kept weighing up whether people are good or bad, and maybe even whether there's such a thing as a bad person at all. The worst people in this book are the ones that genuinely think they're doing the right thing and think that the end, their goal, justifies any means to achieve that. And the book, I think, really well hammers in how seductive and attractive the bad side can be when it's easy, when it's comfortable, and when those people are acting like your friends, especially to somebody who doesn't have any. I think so much of the story affecting stuff happened in the interpersonal relationships in here, in politics and dialogue where parties are being deliberately deceitful, with their motives masked. I think this book probably isn't for people who like more traditional sci-fi. This is for people who like spy thrillers, maybe, and are looking to branch out. I give extra points when a story is really inseparable from the background that it occurs in, and I feel like you could probably have taken this story out and had the same story in a lot of different settings, and it wouldn't have made a huge amount of difference. Saying that though, I do think it did sit well in the world that Claire North has built. This book asks some very interesting questions, but overall I think it is quite pessimistic. I'm not even sure, getting to the end of the book, that there is a message of hope at all. I think it's very critical of the cyclical nature of human destruction, and it asks whether as a species we are ever able to learn from our mistakes, and then says probably not. And this happens both on a societal level and on a personal level with Ven, as we follow the horrible choices they have to make again and again and again. One of the ways I think it was, maybe unintentionally, very pessimistic was with the Kukui spirits, who I'll come back to in a second. But it almost seemed as if it was saying that humans will only ever be good when they're terrified. The Kukui, I think, were the thing that made this book feel very fantasy. There are these monsters tied to locations almost like genius loci. The minor god of a forest, the minor god of a river, that woke up, came on the back of explosions, wildfires, horrible droughts, pollution events, to raise humanity to the ground for harming the earth. people's recollection of these events and the stories they tell about them give the book almost a Studio Ghibli feel. It feels a lot like Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. The weirdest part of this book, and probably the bit I liked best, was that I was never sure whether the Kukui were real. Even when you literally see one, one is seen by a boy on the verge of dying, delirious from suffocation and cold. You see another in the fire of an explosion, and I think it's meant to be deliberately vague. Are these spirits, or are these a case of humans assigning God personalities to horrible events, almost so they can be in denial that they caused their own destruction? I think the way the Kukui were presented in here was extremely clever, and I'm not sure, even at the end of this book, whether they existed at all. I think there are a couple of things in this book it didn't address as well as it could have. It talked about excess creeping back into human society, about people going back to their old ways of greed, about a class divide re-establishing itself. But considering it's a book about balance with nature, it really didn't talk about that ecological side of it at all, and it's something I feel could have made the book richer. It was about humans trying to upset a balance, other humans trying to stop it. With the temple guarding the old knowledge, hoarding the data, part of me was like, why keep dangerous things at all? Why not destroy the blueprints for, say, a nuclear warhead as soon as you find it? Why keep those? Who is reaching a consensus of what is safe and what is not? What gives one human the right to keep something from another human and say, I'm sorry, I've decided you can't have this because it's bad? I'll say this book isn't for everybody. There are a lot of long stretches where nothing happens. It's peaceful for the most part, interspersed by random acts of, well, not random, but acts of extreme violence. But even these are told to the reader in a very quiet and removed way. I'm not sure if this is the author's style, this being the first Claire North book that I've read, or whether it's reflective of Ven, and it's a deliberate choice to paint the protagonist as emotionally removed from everything that's going on around them because of their past. It does get a little tiring when nothing good happens to a character ever. It's very Cormac McCarthy, The Road. It's just a trudge of like, oh my god. Oh my god. And there were bits of this book that felt more like essays than prose. Critiques on various parts of society more than an actual novel. It's very flowery and descriptive of the ground level view of the filth of human society, and I don't know how much that actually lent to the plot. Either way, this is a very well written book, and you can tell it has been meticulously planned. There's a lot I think you'd pick up on a reread that hints at reveals and twists later on in the story. Don't go into this expecting sci-fi, please, because that's not what you're going to get. But I think if you go into this blind or as somebody that enjoys a thriller, you're probably going to have a good time. I think this is a high 3 stars, low 4 stars for me. I'll definitely be checking out at least one other thing by Claire North to see how representative it is of the rest of their work. But if you read this one, let me know what you thought about it. So thanks for watching my review. Twitter and Goodreads and Instagram will all be linked down below in the comments. If you want to join our Interstellar Sci-Fi Book Club, that will link down in the description as well. And I'll see you soon for the next review. Bye.